Well, good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. We might have a few more people jumping on with us today, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the EFC's Community Sustainability Tool Showcase. We're so excited to show you our new tool and kind of walk you through it. So I'd like to introduce my colleague, Brian Bonsack. He's a program manager with Wichita State Environmental Finance Center, and he's going to kick us off today.
Thanks, Michelle. So, hey, you guys might have heard us chatting a little bit earlier. So, thanks for coming. We wanted to try to showcase you guys, or kind of showcase our sustainability tool. It's a tool that we're proud of, but we're going to kind of keep this presentation a little bit informal because we do realize, looking at the registration list, I recognize a lot of the names. So we kind of had like 3 goals for today, and feel free to kind of chime in whenever you can. The first goal we had was just to make sure you guys knew about the update. Thanks to the to EPA's funding, we were able to update the sustainability tool and bring it online for this region's states. We also wanted to make sure that you guys knew how to use it. Jacob, I'm going to pick on you because I see you're on the screen. So we want to make sure that folks are out in the field and know about the tool and know how to use it. So we want this to be a pretty informal webinar, if you will. So please jump in with questions. If you don't understand something, you've got the team here and we'll explain it to the best we can. And I apologize, Jacob, for picking on you, but I see you. So, and you're one of the folks that we're hoping to reach out to. I mean, you're a small community in Kansas and so forth and so on. And then finally, we are looking for some more feedback from those of you as to ways we can potentially spread word about the tool. We've presented it at several conferences throughout the region. We've tried to get it into as many publications as we can, and we're just wanting to make sure folks know about it. It's a free tool that's available. We think it's a great resource for communities, and thanks to EPA's funding, it's free. We're not trying to sell you on something. We're just trying to provide a neat resource for you. So behind the scenes, Michelle will be advancing the slides. Michelle, if you want to go on.
Sure.
And you can also correct me whenever you feel free to. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit more informal than some of the deals. For some of you may be wondering, why Wichita State? Why are we doing this, particularly for some of for Iowa, Nebraska, and Missouri? Well, it's because we're this region's environmental finance center. I tell folks repeatedly, I'm an ex-federal employee from a different agency, but I'm real impressed with the EPA and the way they've stood up these environmental finance centers in each of the EPA regions. Yeah, environmental finance centers are used by EPA. We work collaboratively with them to address environmental issues, of various natures. What we're known for at Wichita State is we're known for our work in water project, where we're trying to promote people into the profession, as well as our asset management program, and we're increasingly getting known for this tool. So that's why we're here. We're here thanks to EPA's funding, and I think it's a great service from EPA for trying to promote, to provide the technical assistance out to a lot of you communities. Michelle, if you want to go on. Here's our mission with the Wichita State and EFC. So we're trying to we are a collaborative resource, creating solutions to environmental issues to improve the quality of life in communities. Thanks to our EPA funding and our other partners, Kansas Health and Environment, as well as some of you state agencies out there. Missouri, we're working closely with you. Iowa, we're working more and more closely with you. We'll be up there helping you with your capacity development. We're getting to expand our strengths here and the topics that we get to work on. So we're a good potential resource for you, and we are the EFC for this region. So with that, next slide, Michelle. Here's the team that is working it, and we're all on the presentation today, all on the webinar. I'm one of the main speakers. You can see me on the screen, or you can see my picture, but this is the team that's worked behind the scenes to update the sustainability tool. We got Dr. Xiaohong Wang on the right, myself, Michelle DeHaven as a program associate. Probably botched your title, Michelle. Michelle and John on the left have worked extensively on the tool. Those two spent many a night, I think, worrying about it. As we worked through the tool and understood it more, I think Michelle and John would be texting each other at 10:30 on Friday night saying, hey, what about this? What about this? Dr. Rowan Shin is critical. She's the individual on the left. She's a new faculty member within the Hugo Wall School here at Wichita State. She's worked very closely with John on the tool, as well as myself, and she does some real critical analysis with it. So that we're all on the call. We just kind of wanted to give you a picture of who we are and reach out to us. Hopefully we look familiar to a lot of you. And this is us on the show. So the community sustainability tool, it is state specific. It's using information from the American Community Survey. Right now it's available for the states of Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, and Missouri. We've recently completed Oklahoma, and we'll be doing more outreach with them. And John and Dr. Shin are just in the final stages of the Louisiana, so it's under development. Like the slide says, we originally developed it in 2019 and released it. And since it's using census data, what it was using was the data up to 2016. We received some positive feedback from y'all, from some of y'all on the tool, and in particular EPA. So EPA was kind enough to give us funding, and we were able to provide updates to the tool this year. And that's kind of the purpose of this. We're letting you all know that the tool is available, and we released it, and it's now got census data up to 2019. With the additional funding from EPA, with this update, we've made a few modifications in the tool. One is we were able to bring it online. Before it's a Microsoft Excel based tool. So before you would have to contact us, have us send you out the Excel spreadsheet, and then you run it on your own. But thanks to EPA's funding, it's now online for those 4 states. We also standardized the tool. We found as we got into the tool, we found some deviations in the methodology used between the states. It's now all using the same. So that's kind of where we're at, and why we're releasing this, and we want to get your feedback, like I said, on making sure you know how to use it. And if you've got ideas on ways that we can promote it, let us know. The consensus of the folks that have used it so far is that it's good. It's not perfect, but it's good, and it really is a useful free resource, particularly for small communities that cannot can afford to be hiring consultants and are faced with the challenges that a lot of you are faced with. Go on, Michelle. So this will be my last slide. John, I'm going to hand it off to you after this. So the tool's uses, it forecasts, what it does is it forecasts the median household income and other variables for the small communities that are identified, for actually almost all the communities that are identified in the American Community Survey from the census data. What we do is we grab the existing data, and then Dr. Shin and John will do analysis behind the scenes and then project those numbers out to the future. This slide mentions median household income. That is the critical thing in terms of affordability, or in terms of water, in terms of your water rates and your water utilities. I love seeing the population projections. It does require user inputs. What it requires you to do is gather your average residential water bill, and also then looks at what you're thinking about investing. What's the amount of your investment if you're going to be putting in an upgrade? What's the interest rate? And you need to know that to use the tool. A few things that it doesn't do. We realize that it does not. The tool, you have to have a good water rate. A lot of folks haven't adjusted their water utility rates. So if you're using your existing ones and your existing rates are not good, then the tool might give you some bad results in the future. If your current rates are good, then it's going to be a good tool for you. Another thing the tool doesn't do is differentiate between types of users. A lot of you guys in the small communities might have different user classes. We don't take that into effect. It's looking at your average water bill of a residential user. And then the one thing we realized over time is there's geographic limits based on it. All the information is based on your census data's community, the census data as it relates to communities. Some of you may be in rural water districts, and so you may have several communities involved. Some of you may be in a city where part of the city's in one water utility and some of it may be served by another. So that's a limitation, but it's just some basic geographic limitations with it. That's what I wanted to share with y'all. John, I don't know if you're ready to go, but like I said, please, John's going to demonstrate it. Yes, Deidre, we will be sharing the slides. Thanks for the question. John, here you go. It's all yours.
Thank you. And also, Deidre, at the end of this presentation, we are recording, and so this will also be available for you. All right. So just to kind of go over some of the key data and variables that we use. So this is kind of that back end part that Brian was talking about just a second ago. So what do we use to forecast median household income and kind of set the bedrock for the tool? So the tool uses previous year's median household income, the population of the community, the percent of the community that's currently employed within manufacturing, the percent of the community with a high school degree, and then the percent of the community with a college degree. We then go ahead and forecast that out over the course of over 30 years. As we get more data, we'll continue to expand that out for those longer term loans. But currently the tool can go out for 30 years on that forecast of median household income. And then whenever we talk about affordability, we're using that 2.5% of median household income for drinking water and 2% of MHI for wastewater. So combined 4.5%. And so that'll be more important. Just kind of remember that for when we're looking at the tool later. I'll go more into depth then. So how the tool works. So we take that previous community information, and then from that community information that we've pulled from ACS, the American Community Survey, we use 5-year estimates because that captures those small communities within the states. We then will forecast out, and that's where we get that program generated data. But from that community information, we do something that's called a fixed effects panel data regression, and that gives us our coefficients, and we use previous data to help forecast out into the future, which gives us our forecast. And I believe that was the last slide. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Today we're going to be focusing on the online tool. So if you're outside of Region 7, it's currently not in. Okay, Michelle, can you see my screen?
Yes, it's good to go.
Perfect. I always just like to make sure. Can't assume. Okay, so this is the online version of the sustainability tool. Go up here, communitysustainabilitytool.org. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to maybe look at it already. If not, hopefully it's been in the emails that have been going out. And then we'll also talk about a different website with some more resources for you. So the community sustainability tool, I believe this was on some of the emails that have gone out, but just some of the information that you're going to need in order for the tool to work most effectively would be the following. So that average household water and wastewater bill. If you're curious on how to get that, kind of my suggestion, what I found most useful is taking your revenues divided by your total number of connections. You can do it for a specific month, but it's typically more accurate if you do it for an entire year. So if you have an entire year of revenues, then you divide that by your total number of connections and then divide by 12. That gives you a good average monthly household water and wastewater bill. We're looking at this from a month perspective. And then annual growth in water and wastewater bills. So in some areas, this is built into an ordinance. So we're going to increase our water rates by X% every single year. And then, you kind of have the reverse of communities that never increase their water rates. And that's something that you get to decide on how you want to forecast that. And the tool is very easy to use. Once you get to the outputs page, you can just go back to the inputs page and change features so that you can see the different forecasts and what different loan amounts in years and interest rates will do to impact the sustainability. And then the last thing that you'll need is that loan information. So this, you don't have to have a finalized loan to use this, obviously. And you could, for example, I know that some places have gone, they look at a $500,000 loan and then they just kind of do $100,000 increments, playing around with the tool just to kind of see where that limit on what their consumers look like they're going to be able to afford in the long term. So as mentioned, currently the only states that are built into the online version of the tool are region 7 states. So Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, and Iowa. I won't go through and show a demonstration for each state. They're all the same, except the drop-down list is different. So for today, we'll go with Kansas. So this is the inputs page. You know, we've already talked about the inputs. Nothing should be surprising, and we'll just work our way down. So when you click on select a community, you'll see that there's a drop-down list, and you can use that just fine. Or if you know what community you want to work with, you can type it in. So Parsons, Kansas, that's where I currently live. But for today, I wanted to pick a smaller community to talk about the tool. So we'll pick Belleville, Kansas. It's in the north central part of the state. It's smaller, located on a highway and thoroughfare through the state. So, so our current average household monthly drinking bill, we'll go ahead and put that at $550, $55. Maybe something that we want to do is look at increasing that drinking water bill throughout the years. Currently, the city of Belleville does not do this, so but we want to see what that impact would do on that base $55 a month bill. So that moves us on to our wastewater bill. Sometimes I've noticed with most communities, wastewater is easier since typically that charges a flat rate per month. It just depends on what your department is capable of doing and what your rate structure is set up as. And then we'll put a 1% increase in our wastewater bills. So our planned expenditure on drinking water infrastructure, really this can be, you know, whatever the specific project that you're looking at. Just for the sake of simplicity, we'll put $1 million planned expenditure on a piece of water infrastructure. Maybe we're going to go through and do some pipe replacement in the next few years. And then the number of years that infrastructure is going to be financed, we're going to put in as 20. On the wastewater side, maybe we need a new type of truck vehicle, and we can, again, do 20 years on that. So do you have the annual interest rate for financing? So maybe you've looked out there already, you see, you know, an interest rate that you think that your community is going to be able to capture. So you can hit yes, and that will allow you to enter that annual interest rate that you would like. If you don't, and you want to use a default rate, the information for all of these is located within these little I buttons to the side. But the annual interest rate for financing is going to be between 2.18% and 4.1%. And so how we came up with these is it's kind of on a curve. So the shorter the loan amount, the higher the interest rate typically. And the longer the loan amount, that interest rate starts to drop. So it's on a curve between 4.1% and 2.18, or 2.18% and 4.1%, just depending on the length of the loan. I know that right now interest rates have kind of been all over the place within the last year. So you might get a more accurate output if you put something in here. I think one of the most recent ones that I saw was around 2.15%. That was a USDA-RD loan. So then we hit calculate. Let it think for a second. And then this produces, you know, kind of this base information. So up here, the sustainability risk is high. And so what does that mean? It means that there is a high likelihood that within the next, I think we go to 2051, that before 2051, your rates will be high enough that it's going to be above that 2.15% of the median household income. And it's we'll come down here and I'll talk about the probabilities a little bit. So this gray cone is the 95% confidence interval for where we think median household income is going to be. From here back, you can see the historical rates that we've been able to get from the ACS data. So what this is saying is that there's just a very high probability based off of our range of incomes that it's going to be unaffordable by the end of the end of the forecasted years. So the average drinking water bill, I think that this is kind of a useful thing to look at. So we said our current bill is $55 a month for the average consumer within our system. If our operations don't change, if we want to keep the same level of funding everywhere else, and we want the cost of the loan to be absorbed by the ratepayer, we're going to be looking at an increase of about $7.04. That's our projected increase needed to cover that loan. And then that'll stay throughout the years. From here, you can see this is our $55, and then this is our increase between just the loan amount taking into effect. And then it goes over the 20 years. So at this point, and this is what you're seeing here in the growth in your drinking water bill, is a tool accounting for that 2% increase every single year. Maybe after you see something like this, you're like, well, maybe we need to look at 1%. What would that amount of increase look like? And maybe for your specific community, if you don't have something set in place for an annual increase in your rates, something that you could do is look over the last 10, 20 years. So what was our rate 20 years ago? What is it today? How much does that increase as a percentage? And then use that to help you forecast out into the future. Just one of those historical metrics that you can look at. And some interesting information that might be helpful for you and your decision makers is to look at our projections below. So we offer population, median household income, that forecasted monthly drinking water bill, and then that percent of the forecasted median household income over here on the right. So as we can see for Belleville, the population decreases all the way down to about 1,500. It loses around 300 people within the community according to our forecast over the next 30 years. For a community that size, it comes out to about 10 people per year leaving, which, based off of experiences there, that seems to match up with reality fairly well. But again, it's a projection. A lot of things can happen within a community. If an Amazon workshop shows up, or warehouse shows up right outside of town, we could probably expect that population to change. That's something that we can't capture. But over to the middle column, you can see the forecasted median household income, and then our monthly water drinking bill. And then you can see where that 50% marker is for when we think it'll meet up with median household income, and that's in 2031. So after we've kind of reviewed our drinking water, we can move on to wastewater. It's mostly the same, but we put in a lower loan amount. And so that chance of meeting that 2% that they say is acceptable for your monthly wastewater bill is fairly low over the lifespan that we're forecasting. And if you didn't want to change anything and you wanted the loan to be absorbed entirely by your ratepayers, we're forecasting an increase of about $1.83 per month for your average bill. And this is, I would say, pretty typical of what you would see, that your wastewater doesn't come anywhere close to that 2%. Just depends on your community, but in my experience, I see a lot more of this. And again, it shows those population metrics. The only thing that's changed here is the monthly wastewater bill and percent of median household income. So that moves us into our combined. So between both of these factors, our sustainability risk is moderate. So for both of these loan amounts, we think that there's going to be an increase of $8 a month for each consumer. And if we go down here, we can see that the projected income on the combined bill is $124. And that's entirely coming from that increase in interest rates. So if we go back and we change our increase to, in the monthly bill, to 0% per year, this would be a mostly static line with the exception of when the loan hits and then when it goes away. You know, that doesn't account for the cost of things that change over time. So I wouldn't suggest doing that, but I'm just trying to explain to you where that increase is coming from over time. And, you know, depending on your community, maybe I think the combined is useful because sometimes you have maybe your drinking water fund and your wastewater fund, you know, they exist at the same time, but one of them is subsidizing the other. And so taking this combined forecast, I think, is very useful for your utility. So things that we offer down here is the user guide. So if you have questions about the tool, it's, you know, you're working on it in the evening, you can go through and hit the user guide. The technical guide, which goes into more detail about what it is that we've done to produce the tool. If you're more interested in learning about the statistics behind it, we have the technical guide. And then an instructional video similar to this one, as we just did, this example, you can watch it there. And then an opportunity to give us your feedback. We really want to know how people are using the tool, what they find useful about the tool, and areas where they think that the tool could be improved upon. So that's the tool. I'm going to hop away from it for just a second. I didn't really talk too much about the share report and download report, but up there you have the ability to download it. So if you wanted to go back and compare different versions, you just go back, you download this report. It covered drinking water, wastewater, and combined. And then you can go back to your inputs. And then you could see the different inputs and how they affect the outcomes. So just real fast, this is on our website, the Community Sustainability Tool webpage, and we'll include this link in the emails that we send out. But if you don't want to use the online tool, or you want to look at more than one city at a time, I would suggest the Excel version of the tool. And if you come here, you can click to download Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, and Missouri. And as Oklahoma and Louisiana become available, they'll also be available for download here. But this gives you an Excel version of the tool, and you can go back and see by unhiding tabs kind of all of the measures that we forecasted out, including the percent of high school, including the percent of manufacturing and bachelor's degree attainment rates. So with that, I just wanted to say that that was out there. It's on our website, and we will include a link. But that is all that I have. Are there any questions about the tool?
Feel free to unmute and just jump in with any questions, or if you'd like to put them in the chat, either one is fine. But feel free to just jump in and ask any questions about how the tool works.
Hey, John.
Hey, Shelley.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you this morning?
Not too bad. Hey, I like this online version. That's pretty sweet, having the user guide and the video and things for people. I have been talking about this over the last couple of years when I go out and do presentations. And I've worked it into when I'm talking about asset management, and kind of like you're doing, running through some different scenarios so that they can see how this tool might be helpful when they're, you know, putting their asset management program together, or, you know, making decisions for rates, and, you know, maybe between doing different things with the rates and taking out loans, that sort of thing. One of the questions I have is, I do have the old tool available on our website right now. So I'm wondering if it's okay if I download the current tool and replace the one that we have there, and then maybe also put a link to the online version as well.
Yeah, of course, that would be great.
Okay.
It was actually at your capacity development meeting that I was attending, where you were actually talking about the sustainability tool, where we realized how important it was that on the online version it shows the population ranges, because I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, and I think, having this extra information on the online just helps people to understand what's going on in the background, maybe makes more sense to them. So I think with having both the Excel version and then the link to the online version, it'll give everybody in Nebraska that want to use this, that option, and then maybe help them if they haven't seen me or heard me talk about it. It would give them more information on what's going on with it. So thank you so much for.
Yeah, of course. And on the website, the wichita.edu, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's contact information for both Brian and me. So if you're ever working on the tool and have questions that you'd rather have our input from, feel free to email us anytime.
Okay, great. Thanks, John.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, John, I don't know if you, this is Brian. I don't know if you want to go back to that one, if you want to go back to that initial output on the drinking water one, that to me is very, just want to make sure folks understand kind of what's going on with that. And you were doing a good job on that. I thought of explaining it, but this is the way I like to look. So go down to the graph. And I just wanted to point out to folks just one thing. So like John, as John pointed out, the red line is, where you're at right now. And then you see the increase and it goes up, and that's when the loan hits. And then you see the loan being paid off, at the peak, and then it starts to drop back down. And so that's, if you had a 30-year loan, that thing would have been kept going up. That's to me, that's just a great graphical representation. And then, and then the other thing that you're seeing is the starting point on the left versus where it's ending on the right. That is that 2% that cost increase that John talked about. So what you're seeing is the tool is with that first peak is your 2% cost plus your loan being paid off. But then after that loan gets paid off, you still see the influence of that 2% cost of service. So to me, that this is a very useful slide, just showing that even without utility and improvements, that community, if they do seek to increase their water rates by 2%, they're going to be struggling. So at least that's how I interpret that. And I just kind of want to make sure that folks kind of understood that graph. To me, it's a great example. You see the loan hit, see the loan gets paid off, but then you just see the continual cost of service increase. So thanks, John.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Hey, John, this is Travis Archer from Oklahoma DEQ. I appreciate you guys having this presentation. I was in a meeting last week with EPA. They were kind of demonstrating the functionality of this tool as well, and I think it's great. I'm just curious, do you guys have a definite time frame for when this will be available for Oklahoma?
The Excel version, I believe, is currently has been provided to Oklahoma for review, and then after that, if then it'll be available in the Excel-based version. I don't know of a timeline for it being an online tool. I think that would be something directed towards like Brian.
Do you know who in Oklahoma is reviewing it?
I sent it to Brandon Bowman, Charles, is it Coutant? Probably botching the last name. Brandon Bowman and Charles and Jonathan Reynolds is on the EPA rep for your region. So Jonathan has it. We can send it to you, Travis. I've got your email address.
Yeah, that would be great. Just so you guys are aware, Brandon Bowman, he recently left and took a position with our Rural Water Association.
Okay.
So right now, my capacity development section doesn't have a manager. So for any of these type of conversations or reviews, I'll be your point of contact from the foreseeable future.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
and did you work with Charles then, or?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, Charles.
Okay.
Yeah, he's at the Water Resources Board, and I was actually I'm represented on this call twice. My manager for our drinking water state revolving fund section, Eddie Randur, he's on here as well. And Eddie, I don't know if you have anything you want to add for the Oklahoma side. He may not be able to unmute. He's remoting today.
So like Travis, any, please, I'll email it. We'll email it to you. And he said, what we've tried to do in the background is tried to present this at, we tried to present it at some of the professional society meetings. If you have some suggestions as to where and how we can get it out, let us know. We did I feel like we did a pretty good job with the press release in the Region 7 states, letting as many folks as we know, organizations know that it's available, and please feel free to use it. With Oklahoma, if there's some specific organizations, we'll develop a press release and we'll get it out once it's finalized. But it's pretty darn, it's 98% done at this point from our perspective. And we just want to basically get it out and on the street. We don't think we're gonna, or it looks like we probably won't have enough funding from EPA to get this made available online. The cost to bring it online were a little bit higher than what we expected. We use a contractor here. We use a different branch of Wichita State to bring it online. And the cost for bringing it online per state is a little more expensive than what we anticipated, but I'll certainly get it to you afterwards, and hopefully open up a dialogue with how we can spread the word within the state. I didn't realize that Brandon had left, so.
Yeah, that happened pretty recently, and that's why I think I got this invitation maybe forwarded to me from him as one of his final things before he left. So
Okay.
I appreciate being able to sit in and see it be demonstrated again. I think it's great. We'll get together here internally and we'll discuss kind of maybe where those different groups are that we can talk about the availability of this. And then once we have that tool become available for Oklahoma, then we can continue those conversations. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, and it is standard.
I did have one question. Whenever you pulled up that drinking water graph, there was that dip for the end of the loan life. Is there a way to project out the replacement cost for future projects as well and that impact? The design life on things are going to be 20 or 30 years. Reality, they go a lot longer. But, for that next step, the next planning phase, be able to project those potential costs.
Right. And then you've obviously probably have loans that are going to be paid off during this time that are probably built into your current rates. At the current moment, we do not have those built in, but that's something that we've been discussing internally to build into the tool in the future, to where you can build in those loan amounts as they fall off and help to make it a more useful tool in that regards.
Okay, well, that's great. Yeah, I think it's excellent on a way to display that type of information there. It was just a thought I had whenever Brian had you go back and we saw that graph and see the loan drop off. It's like, well, is there a way to start planning for those other ones, those future costs, knowing that the design life is limited? So that's good. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
And I had a question that came up. What was that, Michelle? Sorry.
We've got a couple questions in the chat I'd like you to go over real quick.
Okay, I just had one from somebody that they sent to me privately about how to get to here. So I'm going to do that just super fast.
Oh, sure.
So wichita.edu/EFC, and this takes you to our main page. My internet wants to be cooperative. You go to over here in the top right, in this section, these three little lines. Over to our current projects. And we classify this as a water and wastewater project, so the community sustainability tool for water utilities. And then when you click on the learn more, that takes you to the page that I was on initially. And we will send this out afterwards, and it's on this page. We have a quick and easy link up here towards the top of the page to download, and it'll bring you down to the bottom. And then you can just pick the state that you would like to download. So hopefully that helps. And then into the chat. Michelle, were those questions sent to
It was
you?
a yes. So the first question is, could you, back in the tool, would you show what those reports look like when you download them, both the share function
Yeah.
and the download report, please?
Yeah. So when you hit share, it makes a link, the special URL that you can send to somebody when you want to show them specifically what the tool has produced. And then from there, they're able to go through and edit it, and then maybe send that link back to you with those revisions. So that's the shareable link through the report. And then when you download the report, it's going to ask us if we want to print it. And it just depends on what destination you want. You can print it to a printer, or you can save as PDF. Typically, whenever I'm working with a tool, I save as PDF. And as soon as it gets done loading the preview, I can just show you what it looks like without downloading it entirely, because it'll potentially cause some issues with my screen. But we have our inputs. It saves those inputs, shows exactly what you put in for each of those options. And then it shows us our outputs for drinking water, wastewater, our graphs, and then the combined bill output. So everything that you see on the tool, it saves it into a PDF form.
Thank you, John. And
Yeah,
then
no problem.
another question is, how do you break down the water and wastewater percent of income that is affordable?
That is affordable?
That is affordable.
So are you asking how we get to that 2.5%, or why we pick 2.5%?
I believe so, John. I believe that's the question. So
yeah. So the 2% and the 2.5% was something that was it came out of EPA. So that was something that they'd created, and how we get to that point. So what you see over here to the side, this is the monthly cost. And this blue line is, okay, the blue line that you see is the total median household income divided by 12 to give us our monthly median household income multiplied by the 2.5%. So the $74 that we see here, this is the 2.5% of the current median household income. So that's how that's forecasted. Hopefully I answered the question.
And I'll add just a little bit to it. Yeah, the 2.5 and the 2.0%, those are some unofficial numbers, I believe, that EPA has suggested. And I know a lot of utilities are now, there's a lot of discussion going on within academics and utilities themselves as to whether or not that's a good measure. That is, EPA's can put it out there kind of unofficially, and so that's what we use. I was just at a conference last week or a couple weeks ago, and folks are talking about other breakouts, like really getting into maybe poverty levels and this and that. But for now, as a general measure, we are using that. Hopefully that answers the question.
It does. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
And just while we're kind of talking about this, you can see on the graph where on the left side of the graph, you'll see that in this particular community that the median household income stays fairly flat. That's just an example from this particular one. You see that the median household income going into where the model starts projecting, it's fairly flat, but you'll see the deviations on the left. And that's one thing, this particular community, it does look flat. Well, if you get into other examples, you're going to see some that go up, some that go down. There is some variability within the ACS data, and the model does its best to project out what the income's likely to be. If y'all want, we kind of like set aside this part. Hopefully we've answered most of the questions. And what we'd kind of set aside was some time to where you guys can potentially use the tool on your own. And we kind of plan to stay on for a while and answer any questions. From our perspective, we've been working with the tool quite a while, and we think it's fairly straightforward and easy to use, but we've been working with it a lot. So Michelle, I think we talked about, just kind of hanging around. And if you guys, I don't know if we talked about if there's a lot of interest in folks trying it and then coming back to us with questions, we can do that. John, Michelle, I don't know if you have anything to add. I mean, we've enjoyed giving you guys the presentation. We think it's a good tool. I think it's particularly a good resource for the small communities that cannot necessarily afford the consultants to come in and analyze their future, whatever the consultant fees would be. So,
Brian, this is Bob Dunleavy.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was trying to look at here a little bit more is in the example you're showing here, the population seemed to be declining. I think it was, 10 people a month or a year.
A year.
And so when I was looking at this and I was thinking, okay, is that part of the increase in the water bill? Because, that's one of the things we talk about a bit now is that, especially with these small communities, is that how, especially the smaller ones under 500, how these communities, you lose 10 people and that's a substantial hit to the water bill that others have to cover. So I was just wondering if that was something that was built in, or is that something that you're looking at in the future?
John,
So
you're the expert on that. You're way into the Excel formulas.
yeah, so the answer to that would be both. So as population I wish I had the formulas in front of me. I apologize for not. Currently, it takes population into account in terms of forecasting out the median household income. And as population decreases, as does your median household income. That's not a perfect relation back to your water bill. Right now, this is looking at your ratepayers' capacity to do it. As we progress with the tool, we want to build in more specific metrics that will help with utility health. So as our population decreases, what will that do to our connections? Because as we lose population, as you correctly note, we're probably going to be losing connections as well. And then how does that affect our fiscal health in the long term? And then building that back into the rate that we display within the tool.
Bob, well, that's an excellent question, and for sure we'll clarify with everybody, because John and Michelle and Dr. Shin are the experts with getting into the Excel formatting. We will get back and verify with you. I do think that the rate does it's I believe the rate is the population or the bill divided by the population, but for sure we'll get back to you and verify that. You got to get way into the Excel formatting. And it's just a great question. We'll make sure we get everyone the correct answer. Yeah, John and Michelle and Dr. Shin have quickly become Excel experts. And there's a lot of, on the Excel version, you can see all the formatting that goes on behind the scenes. So hopefully that, we'll get you the correct answer. I think John's correct, but we just need to verify.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I've found very useful with this tool is that there have been a few cases where Mike Tate in our office has provided us with some real life information on a few systems. And I've checked back with the state and really kind of, you understand where the state has made some decisions about maybe giving a loan or somebody else giving a loan or specific maybe not exactly what the system wanted to do, but something different to maintain compliance. So it's been interesting to see some of this going on and taking a look at what the tool would say in those situations. So it's been pretty close.
And that's good to hear. And that's also something that we're seeking with the feedback of how well does this line up with the community that you have? Because, it's a forecast. It's not going to be, an exact prediction, but we can make those forecasts better. So if there is a community that you see where it doesn't fit very well, please provide us with that feedback. You can shoot me an email. And in that way, we can figure out what communities it works for best, what community it doesn't, and then how we can address those issues. Thanks for being here today, Bob. It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, same here. I also, of course,
Yeah.
one of the things I know that we've talked about this before is that it works better with small systems than the larger systems.
Mm-hmm. It does. And so the larger systems, since population is a variable, there are some communities that are seeing, explosions in population. So that kind of has affected our outcomes. Not so much anymore. We've noticed that as we've been adding in these new years over the last, almost 2 years now, a year and a half, as we're adding in these new years, population is turning out not to be as important as a factor. So some of those larger communities we're seeing better results for. I will note that in large urban communities that have seen, a lot of depopulation within the last 10 years, those outcomes sometimes result in the forecast just doesn't work very well for them. Because we're looking at 40 years, so you lose 100,000 people, and with each person, we're saying, this affects median household income. It can really skew the results. So yeah, this tool works a lot better for smaller communities than it does larger communities, but I just wanted to dive a little bit more into the specifics of what causes that. So I hope I answered that question.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
For those of you on the call, on the webinar, that's Bob Dunleavy speaking. Bob is our EPA contact out of Region 7, and he's just been very supportive of us. And he actually does I know we got some folks, I think, from Rhode Island. So Bob actually does a great job coordinating with the states here in this region, and even expands out a little bit. Bob holds some great asset management calls within the regions. I think we got some Rhode Island and some other folks. So that's just thought I'd share that with you. Folks, like I said, if you want, we can hang around. I think that's most of what we have to talk about today. We appreciate you guys coming. We can hang around for a little bit. If you guys want to try and run the tool on your end and come back to us with questions or whichever, we appreciate your guys' time and your support for the tool with a lot of you guys. If you have suggestions for us, let us know. Any of us on the team, you'll be getting our contact information. If you have meetings that you would like us to attend, we can, obviously webinars are pretty easy to hold. So if you got some internal staff meeting or whatever that you'd like us to participate in, we can come and give virtually at least, give you a description of the tool and how it works. We've been submitting it for meetings. Some of the conferences that are upcoming, and some of those get put off, and some of them are getting canceled with COVID and so forth and so on. And we just really want to make sure that you guys know that the tool is out there. It's a great resource. In our mind, it's a great resource for you to use, and you can quickly and easily do a bunch of different analysis on your systems and some of the challenges that your systems are facing. So, Michelle, John, I don't know if you have anything else to add, and I don't. John, Michelle, any of the team, Rowan, you're on, so.
Yeah, I'll just hop in real fast with, you know, if as you're playing around with the tool, you have questions, feel free to shoot me an email and I can answer you back there. If it's something that would work better, if we set up a time where we could, you know, set up a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, I'd be happy to do that. Just to help you understand the tool and then get feedback from the tool. So reach out anytime. I'll be around for a little bit longer today. I have time. So if you have more questions, want to ask, you know, more specific stuff, I'm available.
That's all we have for today. So yeah, feel free to hang out and ask questions if you'd like. Otherwise, have a wonderful day and let us know if you have any questions. We'll send out an email that has the slides from today as well as the links to those web pages. And then you can keep up to date with what's going on the tool by checking out our website occasionally to see what's new there.